Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Game presented by TV Sports. I'm your host, Steve Hayes, and today we have Mr. Do-It-All, Director at Fox Sports, Michael Oddino. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem, man. I call you Mr. Do-It-All because I seen your work and I see that you do a lot behind the scenes when it comes to live eventing for sports. And I just wanted to know, how did you get started? Like, where does your story start?
My story starts, I grew up in Los Angeles, and, I was a sports nut as a kid. And I'd race. I'd get up in the morning and race and try to get the newspaper and get the sports page. If you remember sports pages,
Yes.
I'd race and try to get it before my dad did. I don't think anyone reads sports pages anymore, but that shows you I'm a bit of a dinosaur. But I would read the sports page cover to cover. I was into, at the time, Lakers and Dodgers and Rams, and and then growing up in Los Angeles, a lot of my friends, their dads were in the industry. Not sports so much, but like one dad worked at Universal Studios. One of my friends' dad worked at Paramount. So I always kind of knew I'd get into the business. But I thought I'd be like a cameraman on a sitcom or something, work at a studio and go to and do that. Yeah. But then I went to San Diego State, and they have a great program. And I got that's where I got the directing bug. They had a control room, and there'd be all these student productions, and everyone would need a crew. So I would volunteer all the time. I'd run audio, I'd do graphics, run camera, but then I'd direct some of my own stuff. And I loved it. Then my first job after I graduated, I got into news, and I started directing weekend news. And then I started doing the daily news, but I started doing UC Davis football. I was in Sacramento at the time, and I was doing UC Davis football on Saturdays. And that's when I just love sports. So to be able to combine my love of sports and my love of television, that was nirvana for me. So I moved up to Seattle. This is late 80s. And I thought, I've done news for 10 years. I want to do sports. And that's where I really made the leap into sports, and have never really looked back. That was the golden age, in the late 80s, 90s.
Right.
And,
right.
Things are changing now. It's a different landscape now.
Now, for me, I'm in my early 30s. I love looking at the past because it's like you said, it was a different age. I love it. I don't know why, but I am a stickler for, I love looking at behind the scenes production of how to make, whether it was the Super Bowl in the 90s or anything like that, like NFL Network when they do the mic'd up and stuff like that. Yeah. I love looking at all that stuff because it just goes to show how much work is put in behind the scenes. Like, you don't, even with the mic'd up and stuff like that, you don't even understand how much these players are talking on the field or on the NBA court. You don't really understand. So for that to be done, I just wanted you to kind of take me behind the scenes of how hectic and also how fun it can be doing a live sporting event.
So my job is challenging. You mentioned, past coverage. I look back, it's really interesting. I don't think our camera angles have changed much. We have more cameras. We have better cameras. Technology is better. The microphones, the cameras, the lenses, everything's better. And we have high definition, so everything looks better. But the basic coverage, I don't think it's changed dramatically. But how to use that technology is something. We are facing something now. Just as the world is crazy with the pandemic and the economy, everything, our business, the sports business, is under major upheaval. I think on many fronts. First, sports rights. Sports rights are just going crazy, and something's going to have to happen there. Sports distribution, how people are viewing the games. There's cord cutters out there. People your age, a lot of people don't even have cable anymore. They're using streaming services, and there's different platforms now. And I think we're all trying to sort that out. How are we going to distribute our product moving forward? And then our basic production model is changing. I'm sure you've seen the big 53-foot trucks sitting outside stadiums and
Yes.
arenas, and
Yes.
we're moving away from that. The internet is changing our world. We knew it was coming. Um, we had dipped our toe into what we call remote production.
Mhm.
The last couple of years, we've done a few high school games,
Okay.
and what I mean by remote production, the crew, we have cameras out on site, but the basic crew, the producer, the director, graphics, Foxbox, replay machines are all in the studio. The announcers are in the studio.
Oh, wow.
The announcers are working off monitors. They're not even on site. So that we dipped our toe in that. The pandemic came along and forced us to do it. So thank goodness we had a little bit of exposure to it, but we've kind of proven we can do it now. So like this past baseball, Matt Shepard, Jack Morris, Kirk Gibson,
Yeah.
when the Tigers were on the road, they were in the studio looking at a little monitor. And I can't imagine what it's like to call a game that way.
Oh,
I'm
calling,
used to it, you know?
that is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but they adapted. Now, same thing. Like our first Thursday, we're going to do our first road Pistons game. So
Okay.
George Blaha and Greg Kelser are going to be in the studio, just basically calling the game from the shots that we provide. And you see that all the networks are doing it. ESPN, Turner, you know, ESPN's doing a lot of their games from home. Now, I'll give credit to the Big Ten's been doing this for quite a while, and Pac-10. Those
Okay.
two, the Big Ten network and the Pac-12 network, they have really been the pioneers, and they've been doing this for many years. And as a cost-saving move, like the Pac-12, once you include the secondary sports beyond football, basketball, volleyball, soccer, gymnastics, all those sports, they do 800 events a year. So they were looking for a model, a non-traditional model. And if you can just set up a studio and have that studio ready and crank out those games, that was how they, for looking into the future, looking into the crystal ball, they knew they could save money that way.
Mhm.
Cutting down travel costs. If you don't have to send your production crew and talent announcer, sideline reporter, you can save tremendous amount of money. So at the end of the day, in television, at the end of the day, it's usually about the money. And I think they're just trying to save money. And we've proven we can do it now. So
Right.
I don't anticipate ever going back out on the road. I think the announcers will go back out when it's safe. The
Right.
announcers will be there, but the production team, I think we're going to be there in the studio doing our thing.
Now, you spoke on obviously having to force your hand with the pandemic. How different in all your years of being in this field, how different was this? Have you ever had to endure, and obviously the pandemic was an adjustment for all of us, but have you ever had to endure anything like this from a production standpoint?
No, even like we've had walkouts or strikes,
Right.
lockouts before.
Right.
We've dealt with that, but we came back and we had to rethink everything we did. We had to spread out. We had to be socially distant in the trucks. These
Right.
trucks are these mobile units. They're large, but still we're jamming a lot of people in. Well, I joke it's like a submarine. We're that close. Well, we couldn't do that anymore. So we essentially had to get a second truck and move some of the people into the second truck. So we get there and there's screening procedures as we get into the truck, and there's hand sanitizer, there's plexiglass between us, so our physical world has changed. But then access to the field, like this summer, I never stepped on the field once. I didn't go to the dugout. I didn't go to the clubhouse. Off limits. That was
Really?
tier one. Yeah. So I never saw Gardenhire. I didn't see Gardy the whole summer. I just, the players, like a couple of players, I would see them walking to their car and I'd wave,
Right. Right. Right.
but the access, everything's on Zoom now. So that's crazy, because we weren't traveling with them. I never saw the guys. And that's something we're going to have to, moving forward, we need to be able to adapt to that because, we get to know these guys. I tell people all the time, I don't necessarily root for teams anymore, but I
Hmm.
root for guys. As I know the guys, I see Matthew Boyd. I want him to do well. I see Langston Galloway,
Right.
I want him to do well. Did you see on Phoenix? He hit 4 threes the other
Yeah.
night for Phoenix. I'm like, go Langston,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so I'm rooting for these guys as I get to know them. It's only natural, they're human beings. And so I root for them. But just the way we do things, like I'll probably never, I won't see Coach Casey unless it's on a Zoom, and that's just like,
Wow.
wow, yeah, it's crazy.
Now, do you see? I mean, even if stuff goes back, you hear a lot of people say go back to normal. Um, but really, there'll always be an adjustment that we'll have to make.
Yeah.
From this moment, from this point on, we'll have to make an adjustment. You spoke on the Zoom calls and everything that you have to do now. Do you see a situation where NFL, NBA, everybody will say, okay, from this moment forward, we'll have Zoom media and in-person media?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean that in that if you look at European soccer, they don't open their locker rooms or clubhouses. They,
Mhm.
they bring them out into press conferences. They make them available. But so we're wondering, will we ever be able to go back in the Pistons locker room, the
Right.
Tigers clubhouse? They may continue to do it this way and limit availability. Maybe just bring a guy to a room and make him available. But that going in and getting a one-on-one interview, I'm not so sure. I think we're all trying to figure that out. I think a lot of media departments, a lot of teams, a lot of franchises are trying to figure out what the new world order is going to be. I just don't know if we know yet. As we move forward, I think a lot of people want to get back to the old ways, but I just don't know. I think it's a big question mark.
And I agree with you there. And looking at it now, looking at the way things are, I see you guys, Fox Sports Detroit, looking at your history. I think it was this year you guys were nominated for like 39 Emmys.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
Is that so? Talk to me about that, Michael. What goes into that? How much of a team effort? Because even though you're covering sports, what you guys do is is a team effort within itself. Do you treat it as a sport? How do you guys go about it?
Absolutely. I'm very fortunate to work for a great company. Greg Hamrin, our general manager, Jeff Bile, our executive producer, Brady Clem, our coordinating producer. These guys are really committed. And Jeff, especially Jeff, I've been with Jeff a long time now. All the job stops I've gone, I really followed Jeff. So I've really hitched my wagon to him, I like to say. And he does give me the resources that I need. He's willing to get a budget and he's willing to spend money. He wants us to push and experiment and take risk, calculated risk. And so I really appreciate the support. And I have a tremendous crew, and I'm fortunate. It's a family. We're family. We joke that we spend more time with each other sometimes going on the road and so forth and in the trucks than we do with our own families.
I can imagine.
Yeah. We're in those, typical game. Like yesterday we had a game. I was in at noon. I probably got home at 11 o'clock at night, after the game. And, it's a long day, it's long days. I'm not complaining. It's a good life. But I am given the resources. I have a very talented crew. And I'm very fortunate to work with some immensely talented people. And I push them and prod them and mentor them and coach them, but they really respond. I think most guys, they show up, they have good attitudes. They want to do a good job. These guys, they're fans, they're fans of the teams. And I think most of the guys on the crew, the guys and gals, I should say, they appreciate their jobs. They love what they do. They're passionate,
And last, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I wanted to know from you, obviously with you being in this field for so long, when this pandemic happened and everything, how are you personally, how are you able to adjust and adapt?
It was really interesting. It really made me take a step back and appreciate what I've been able to do, and be in a position now. I really kind of stepped back and reflected and thought, it's time. I didn't want to be depressed. I had to really work hard at growing my mind and working on my body, working on my soul, and my heart. And I tried to, I started reading more and really trying to take care of myself and not just waste away the days. I'm trying to make the days productive. But it really made me miss what I do too. I miss being part of the family. You hear ex-athletes say that all the time when they retire. What do they miss most? They say all the time, the locker room, the camaraderie,
Right.
being with the guys. And I miss that a lot. And so I feel so fortunate that we're back. And I do hope that the teams and the players can stay safe and stay healthy. You know, it's really important. I think the world, I think society, they love their sports, you know. And I did get a note. We did our first Piston game Friday night. We had a
Mhm.
pretty decent rating, you know. I think it said if it had been a regular season game last year, it would have been our seventh highest rated game, you know, for a,
Wow.
yeah, that's a good little number
Yeah.
for a first preseason game where probably not many people even knew we were on. So we're really encouraged by that. You know, there's a lot of new faces. You know, it's really an interesting time in Detroit. All the teams are struggling. You know, the Lions.
Yeah.
The Pistons are in full. They don't want to call it a rebuild, but you know they are. And
Right. Right.
yeah, and Tigers are doing the same thing. You know, the Tigers are probably a little further along. They have a lot of good prospects, and you know, bringing on AJ Hinch is a great positive move.
Huge. That
Yeah,
was huge.
when I was with the Padres, AJ was the assistant general manager, and that guy, he knows his stuff. He went to Stanford. Talk about a bright guy. Yeah, and he's a great communicator. I think the players are going to love playing for him. And then you know having Stevie Y. You know, let's not leave out the wings.
Yeah.
You know, Stevie Y, man, he's going to turn those wings around. You know, it's going to take
Yeah.
him time, but you know he's going to get it done. You know.
And looking at it now, like you said, the Detroit teams are struggling. I think that's been the most. I mean, for a sports fan, if you're a Detroit sports fan, that's been the hardest thing. Like, okay, we're already dealing with this pandemic, but we have a whole city of teams, a state that's struggling out here. And
Yeah.
anybody, I agree with you with the Red Wings. I talk to my father about that all the time. I do believe AJ Hinch was a great hire, and I definitely feel like he's going to turn it around. The Pistons, I don't understand why they won't say rebuild mode, but
Yeah.
they are in rebuild mode. And as you said, the Lions are the Lions. So,
Yeah. One thing I got to say, you made me think of it, is it's been surreal covering games with no fans. You know, I don't want to leave that out. Baseball was so weird. You know, I'm so used to following a foul ball into the stands because
yes,
it's part of the game to see, okay, who's going to get it and who's going to catch it. And if it's a adult, is the adult going to give it to the kid? You know,
yes.
and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I guess we don't really have to follow foul balls anymore.
Right.
Yeah. And then Friday, it was surreal at LCA because they're doing the full video board presentation, doing the hype video and the intros and the anthem and blowing it out. And I'm like, there's no one here. You know, it was weird, but I get what they're doing. They're trying to do it for the players.
Right.
And
Right.
we have had several conversations. If you were a regular viewer of Tigers baseball, you will notice our mics picked up everything. You know, you could hear
Yes.
umpires, you could hear the dugouts, and you know, we heard some language. And Matt Shepard would regularly have to say, "Hey, you may have just heard some salty language. We apologize
Yep.
for that." You know, now basketball, we're trying to be a little more careful. But the NBA smart. If you watch a game, they're pumping in the music and the prompts.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
they don't want us. They don't want us to really hear the players, only the players.
I
So
think when I noticed that with the bubble when it first started, and I was like, you heard the players loud and clear.
Oh
And
yeah.
then by the second day, it was nothing like, nope, we're not going to do
Yep.
this again. We're going to make
Yeah.
sure that you drowned out all that.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciate you guys seriously, because without you guys, we wouldn't be able to watch the games. We wouldn't be able to enjoy the games. But like you said, that interaction with the fans, turning, you know, whether it was kiss cam or foul balls or whatever the case may be,
Right.
to always have that interaction, whether you're at home or actually at the game, that was something you could find joy in, and everybody loved it. Even if you caught the wave and stuff like that,
Right.
just that type of stuff, everybody loved, man. And it's just an adjustment for all of us. Before we get out of here, Mike, I just want to know if you could leave some words of encouragement to the youth, anybody actually inspiring to be, whether it's an athlete or not knowing what they want to do, if you could just leave some words of encouragement.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in. Obviously, I get a lot of young people come to me that want to get into television, but it probably applies for anything in life. Whether you're an athlete, going to school, whatever field you're studying. You know, I always say find your passion. and then perseverance. I think any athlete will tell you, anybody in life ain't, it's not fair, and you are going to hit speed bumps and obstacles, and it's how I have two daughters. I tell them all the time, hey, you're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's life, but it's how you handle it, how you bounce back from it. Don't make the same mistakes, and learn from it and be better from it. And I think that's what, you look at any sports, there's a lot of failure, but that's life too, right? There's
Yeah, it is. It
yeah, and
is.
it's how you deal with it. And so I always try to say, I'm one of those. I do like to look at a glass half full, and I try to stay positive. And you got to be ready for anything. One thing I tell my crew all the time, they get tired of it, but I said we have to be able to deal with any situation. The great ones adjust. I say that all the time. You have to be able to pivot. You can't get stuck in your ways. Got to be change. Don't let change rattle you. Now more than ever, we got to change. Our whole lives are changed.
Whole life.
We're wearing masks. You have to wear a mask everywhere and so
Yes.
forth. That's the one. The two things I love to say. Find your passion and persevere. That's
Michael, I thank you so much. Man. I thank you for those words of encouragement. I say to myself all the time. Obviously, like I told you, we started actually covering high school. We were actually on the field, with videographers and stuff, highlighting the games and stuff. But
yeah.
You have to adjust, and if you can't adjust, it's going to be hard for you. It's going to be hard either way. Yeah. Making the adjustment or staying the same is going to be hard. And I just appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. This is Beyond the Game. Michael Oddino, appreciate you, man. Have a good one.
Stephen, thank you, man. Been great.
Oh, absolutely no problem. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.